Peace everyone, Unmasked here, and welcome to this week's Patreon tutorial. And as promised, today we are going to start coloring my version of the fantasy or the fairy tale landscape with little Nugget and Mousu, the ninja mouse, and Sensei to Nugget. And I was debating whether or not I wanted to do an inked version of this and make it a little bit more color book style, or if I wanted to do it without lines. And I finally just decided, you know what, I'm gonna go for the lineless look. So this is I want it to look a little bit more like a book illustration as opposed to a coloring book image. And so that's what I decided to do with mine. Like I mentioned last week, in last week's tutorial, we kind of went over lighting. I touched on color a little bit at the end of the tutorial, and then I kind of talked about a little bit of the details of the coloring competition. Now, I still haven't put out the video yet on YouTube explaining the coloring competition. There's still plenty of time. It's going to be until the end of the month, so there's going to be plenty of time with the competition, which is why I haven't put out the video yet. That, and I was also kind of struggling on what I wanted to do with it and the prizes that I was going to give away. So one of the things that I mentioned last week was that there are no rules to coloring this page. You can crop it down, you can use any medium that you want, even digital medium is fine. I even said that if you wanted to sculpt the scene out of clay, it would be acceptable. So there's going to be no rules whatsoever to the coloring competition, if I can even call it a coloring competition, if I also include sculpting. But anyways, so I went ahead and dropped the inked look for mine, and that's what I'm going to do. That's unique to my decision with my coloring process. And the other thing that I'm doing, I said that I was going to use colored pencils, and I am using colored pencils. I'm actually using Polychromos. And for those of you that have been following me for some time, know that I'm not a huge fan of Polychromos. They're not very opaque. They're all translucent. I feel like they're very oversaturated, which actually, in my opinion, lends itself quite well to this particular style. The oversaturation of the color will help bring this picture a little bit more brighter and cartoonish, which is kind of what I want. Also, since I'm not using any line art, I am going to use the fact that the Polychromos have the sharper tips and I can get more detail and stuff. So I'm going to start with the sky, and today I am most likely going to be able to complete the sky in the mountains. I don't know if I'm going to get onto the grass. I'm working from the background to the foreground. Usually that is going to be the better option when traditionally coloring this illustration here, is to work from the back and then come forward. So the first color in the sky that I'm using is 146 Polychromos. And this color would be somewhat similar to like 1103 Prismacolor and 661 Luminance, if you were to try to match your drawing to mine. And I'm just going to do a light layer and work around all my subject here. My little nugget hanging off the boot here. And I'm just going to work really slowly. And I'm going to be blending the sky out with solvent as well. That way I can get in there with my brush and get my colors all the way up to the line of my actual drawing. Hello Lily, CC, Barbara, Gabor. Good morning, afternoon, evening to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it. I feel like I've kind of been on a video break since last week. I haven't done much after releasing my colored pencil course, and I've been trying to figure out what to do next, and I've been at a loss for ideas. Been struggling with some ideas, and I think I came up with one. I'm gonna do a colored pencil drawing probably next week. Make a video, and then of course next week I need to put out the coloring contest video so that more people are aware of it, because I haven't really mentioned it much other than that live stream, like briefly on the drawing journal, and then of course here on Patreon. Really, you guys are the only ones that know that it's happening. Nobody else really knows the details of it. So I need to put that video together. Probably try to do that next week. Get it out like Tuesday or Wednesday, something like that. I think that might be the plan for next week. Monday, I'd like to do a live pastel tutorial on Monday. Got to figure out what to color though. Hope everybody is having a good week so far. I'm going to be using 3 colors in the sky. I'm going to do this base layer with this blue color, but really what I want the sky to appear as is more of a purple color. So I have a purple color set aside here that I'm going to layer on top of this, and then of course I'm going to use the white pencil as well to make sure that I have enough pigment on the paper so that when I blend out I can get a much smoother texture. I was actually considering doing the entire piece, leaving that grainy colored pencil texture, allowing the entire thing to look like a colored pencil drawing or coloring, by leaving all that pencil grain there and kind of having that old school children's book illustration style. I considered that, but I don't know. Maybe. We'll see how the sky goes. I can always change my mind, right? And then I left it borderless. That's another thing that I wanted to do. I'm leaving it borderless, and I'm just going to kind of bleed out into the page and let it kind of disappear. And I'll do somewhat of an oval shape. For the overall non-border border. How about drawing thunder and lightning? It seems hard to get right. Oh, that would be... Well, thunder is impossible to draw at all because thunder is just a sound. I would have very difficult time drawing a sound. But lightning, on the other hand, I might be able to do some lightning. I actually did do a colored pencil piece that involved a storm with lightning and stuff. It was my first kind of practice piece with the brush and pencil powder blender and textured fixative and all that. I did it off camera and I recorded it, and I was so disappointed in the outcome that I scratched the video. I never shared the artwork, and it just kind of disappeared. But it was a user error because at that time I didn't have polychromos pencils, and you have to use polychromos pencils because the wax base luminance or Prismacolors don't work with the powder blender. It works perfectly fine with the textured fixative. That works with any pencil, but the powder blender specifically needs the more oil-based pencils like polychromos. How was my trip to the U.S.? It was nice. I've been back for a little while. I guess it's just been some time since you caught a live stream or the chance to ask me. But it was a great trip. It was very nice spending time with my family, golfing with my dad. We did a bit of golfing. My sister and I we played so much Magic. It was ridiculous. It was just so ridiculous. Played so much Magic. I mean, there was half of the trip. Half of the trip, I don't think I got to sleep before like 3 o'clock in the morning because we were playing so much Magic. It was just as much fun as I could ever imagine having, and it was a wonderful trip. It was a wonderful trip. I can't wait to go back and see everybody again. I'm sort of in the planning process, a little bit in the planning process of going back again in November. Nothing is set in stone, but it's fairly likely to happen. Not guaranteed, but I really want to make it happen. It just depends on how art stuff goes and if I can swing the cost. Kind of got to get on the ball with a few things, and hopefully my Patreon page will continue to grow, and I'll be able to afford trips back to the States to see my family. That's kind of the biggest hurdle, is just being able to eat up the cost every time that I go, because I can't work when I'm there, and it puts kind of a damper on Patreon. You know, if I'm gone for 2 weeks and there's no live streams, and people might, get a little bored, or they might think they're not getting their money's worth, and that's understandable. I mean, it's understandable, and so I try to do my best to not have that be the case with my Patreon. Don't draw thunder, so Polychromos for lightning. Thank you very much for the advice. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, missed a few live streams since you traveled. Well, when I got back, I tried my best to make up for it. I did like 4 live streams in a week to kind of make up for the missing live streams while I was gone. And it was a pretty hectic week. I was also at the same time trying to finish up my colored pencil portrait course, which took a lot out of me. Tons and tons of editing, dealing with my kind of crappy host for my website. I'm going to be looking into changing my host so that I get a little bit better results as far as the server. People are having a lot of trouble downloading the courses and things because they're fairly large files. They're not that big. They're not that big of files. But I think my server is limiting the ability for people to download, and a lot of people have troubles with it. And so I think I'm going to have to change services. I'll probably be looking into that later on this year. So the purple color that I'm using is 136, and I'm going to be using it really, really lightly because it's rather dark purple. Polychromos doesn't quite have the purples that I'd like to see. But this color, what I would recommend more to get to the color that I'm going for this scene, if you're using Prismacolors, I think that 956, the Prismacolor 956, is like really, really close to what I'd want the sky to be. And then for luminance, maybe 630. That would probably be pretty close. Light color of 630. So I'm just going to do this really lightly down at the bottom. Kind of fade it in. Probably not go past this imaginary line here. Just let the rest of the sky fade away. So just slowly add some purple. I don't want the sky to appear to be too purple because I don't want it to look like a sunset. I just want the sky to be purple. Slightly tinted purple. And I might be adding such a small amount of this that it might not pick up all that well on camera. But once I blend out with the solvent, then the color should show up enough. And it's not like I can't continue to add more and more layers. So probably have to blend out and then add another layer and then blend out again. Working around Nugget's little eyes are tough. I'm actually going to be using a different brush for once. Usually I use the same brush to do my solvent blending, but I decided to go with a number 4 round brush instead of my regular number 8. That way I can get in there really detailed and get those lines nice and sharp. Clean lines, that's going to be key. Since I decided to do this piece without line art, I have to make sure that I get my lines really sharp and clean. That way the objects separate nicely, especially around this butterfly over here. That's another object that I got to work around really delicately. And another tip is as I approach each individual subject, I'll be taking my kneaded eraser. Where's that? Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. Yeah, I take my kneaded eraser here and just lay it on there and pick up the graphite, because you want as little graphite as possible on the paper when you're putting colored pencils over top. That way you don't get the muddy colors. It's mostly important anywhere you're putting a light color, and in particular the sky here is a good example. So I did a lot of the lifting of the graphite of the butterfly here and the top of the hills and around the boot as well, just so when I blend out with the solvent my brush doesn't catch any of that excess graphite and then kind of like put a muddy spot in my sky. So you just got to take your time with that and kind of clean up your graphite lines best you can. Having a kneaded eraser is really invaluable when it comes to working with the colored pencil medium in general. Doing sketches, it's great even with acrylic painting, because acrylic painting, if you do your sketch and you have too much graphite and you're working with like a light color, sometimes it will just require you to do extra layers of your color because you grab some graphite and it kind of muddies up your color a bit. I'm coloring mine digital because I need to learn how. It's so crazy frustrating. I've been trying to watch videos, but I have issues with small spaces and layers. Well, you're using like Procreate or something, right, CC? Can't you zoom in? Can't you zoom in on the picture? I'm pretty sure you can. If you just pinch the screen and stretch it, pinch and stretch, you should zoom into your picture. And then you can, and then you can color in that small space. When it comes to using layers, it's all about being able to mentally comprehend what is happening with each individual layer. So, for instance, your layers are stacked like this in the program, and the layer that's on top is literally on top. So, for instance, for the bottom layer, I would be coloring in the sky. That's what I would be doing. And then the layer above that, I would color in the mountains. Because if I color in the sky and I go over the line a little bit with the mountains, it's not that big of a deal. In fact, if I go over the line on anything in the sky, as long as I put it on the back layer, it's totally fine. Because then on the next layer above, I'll color in the mountains. And everything I put on the mountains, since it's the layer above the sky, will cover the mistakes of where I covered the mountains with the sky. And that would be the same with the grass, the hill here. So it would go sky and then mountains, and then it would go all the grass all the grass here in the back and stuff. All the way up in the front, I would add the grass up in the front as well. And then if I happen to color in the mountains past the line where the hills start, since the grass layer is on top, I can correct that, and then I don't have to worry about it. And then, yeah, and then I continue to just add a layer for each individual object. I think on Procreate you can also create clipping masks, which I talked about on my stream. When I was using Photoshop, I talked about clipping masks, and it makes it a lot easier. Clipping masks are great. All right, back to this. I'm using white now, and I'm just going to lighten up the sky, kind of start the smoothing out process. This will help get it smoother faster when I blend with the solvent as well. And at this point, all of you should know that the pencil pressure that I use is only enough to get the color to show up. So that's what I've been doing with these colors, very, very lightly. In fact, in some cases up here at the top where I'm having it fade away into the paper, pretty much the lightest amount of pressure that I could possibly add, but always just enough pressure to get it to show up. I'm going to add the white around the edge up here as well, so that when I blend out, it should feather into the paper a little bit more consistently. The other thing I'm trying to do with this sky is keep all of my lines as horizontal as possible, because horizontal lines are much, much easier to hide in the sky than if you use vertical lines. So try to stay horizontal as possible when coloring in the sky. And the same holds true for painting. So if you're looking to paint this piece instead of using colored pencils, keep your brush strokes horizontal. Yeah, I would do each individual object, subject on a different layer. And what you could also do, so as far as clipping masks go, what you could do is you could color in each object just a random base color, just any random base color. Add a layer over top of it and make that layer a clipping mask for the object of the layer below it. So if you color in one of the toadstools, like you color in all the toadstools on a single layer, right? Just make it bright yellow or something, and you color it in perfectly with no mistakes. Like you stay within the lines perfectly. You add a layer over top of that and make that layer on top a clipping mask for the layer where you colored the toadstools. And no matter what you color on that layer above, the clipping mask layer won't ever go outside of the clipping mask area of the toadstools. And that way you only have to color them in one time, and then you never have to worry about staying in the lines again. That makes like the shading process a lot faster and easier to do. Rather than trying to shade within the lines, you can just ignore the lines completely on the clipping mask, and it just works very, very easily. At this moment, I am following you with Holobin colored pencils. I only have 12 of them, but that's like divine. They are really wonderful. Never tried them before. Oh, I've never tried them before either. Yeah, you can do a lot with just 12 colors too. 10 colors and then white and black. Yeah, you can do just about anything with that. You just layer them and mix the colors in layers to get the tone and the shade that you want. Because, I mean, if you didn't have purple, you could just kind of mix the blue and red. But you probably have a purple color, at least one purple color. And then just use really light layers of the color in white back and forth to get the really soft tones that I have here. Or whatever tone that you want for your sky. Alright, I think I'm going to go back with a bit of blue. So that 146 color that I used. And I'm just going to do another layer of this. Down at the bottom, really. About halfway up of what I added the purple. So just real quick. Down at the bottom. There we go. Alright, now I'm going to take my brush and do a little bit of blending. Always check to make sure your brush is clean before doing any blending. It's been a long time since I used this brush. So just dip it in your solvent, take a piece of tissue, check to make sure the brush is clean. Yeah, it looks like there's some red in here. Just a small amount, probably wouldn't do anything, but always be cautious of a dirty brush that will just instantly mess your artwork up. And it's oftentimes non-correctable, so now I'm just going to use this brush to blend out this layer and sharpen up my line against all of my subject here. So it should be able to cut out the hills, little nugget here, and the boot and the butterfly. Get all those colors all the way up to the lines there. This is going to be a slow and steady process here because I want the colors to be well blended. And I might not have to do another layer of coloring. I'd like to not have to, but perhaps I'll leave it, no matter how textured it is, simply to leave that kind of colored pencil texture look for the final piece. I might still consider having that colored pencil texture there, just to give the overall drawing a bit more character. The other thing that you want to do, you want to make sure, if you haven't already worked out your color palette for your piece, make a note of the exact colors that you're using to help build that color harmony over the entire piece. It's going to be a really good idea to reuse the colors that you use all the time, and you probably don't want to go over like 17 colors, and that's including like white, black, and any of the mid-range grays for desaturation purposes or anything like that for mixing. So realistically, probably no more than like 12 different individual actual colors, like shades of green, like 2 or 3 shades of green, maybe a few different reds or something like that. But in order to get that color harmony over the entire piece, just minimize your color selection and keep track of the colors that you're using. So this blue and purple that I used in the sky is going to come back in this piece. An obvious part where the sky color is going to be coming back is the water here. The water is going to be exactly these colors reused. So it's just important to keep track of the colors that you use. That's all I'm really trying to say here. So make sure you do that for the purpose of color harmony throughout the piece. I didn't get to do as much talk on color as I anticipated doing on last week's tutorial. So if you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask. And it could be really anything. Am I selling any products like the blending solvent on your website? No, I don't sell any physical products on my website, though I may start doing something like that next year. Not like art supplies, but prints. I'm thinking I might get into selling prints of some of my work next year. Partially the reason I haven't done it yet is because like dealing with shipping prints out, getting prints made and all of that, I think what I'll probably end up doing is like getting just a limited number of prints, so I'll only ever sell like a limited number of prints of any particular piece that I create, and that will be it. So you either buy it while I have it in stock, and then they'll never be printed again after that. So I think I might do something like that next year. That way I don't get overwhelmed with having to like maintain a stock of prints. I can just get them all printed at once, and then once I'm out, I don't have to worry about it again. I think I might do that. I haven't had much interest. I haven't had people showing much interest for buying prints recently. It used to be very, very common thing. I was getting asked if I sell prints nearly twice a day, every day over on Instagram. And then eventually people just stopped asking. I think they just stuck around and they got the answer one time and they didn't have to ask again. But it almost looks like a nighttime sky. It's a little bit more purple than I anticipated it being. I might do another layer of white. If anything, I'll probably just do a layer of white to lighten the sky up a little bit more, because it's a bit darker than what I wanted. I'd really love to buy your coloring book on proper paper. All other coloring books are boring and on really bad quality paper. Yeah, I've kind of stopped working on my coloring book. And I don't know. It was kind of that I lost interest in it, partially because I didn't think that I would be able to get it funded. My plan was to get like 12 drawings done, set up a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe, or a, is it GoFundMe? No, I don't think it's a GoFundMe. It's, I forget what it's called. Maybe it is a GoFundMe. There's so many of those sites, I can't remember. What is it called? Maybe it is just GoFundMe. I can't remember. But I was gonna set it up on there, but it was gonna cost like probably upwards of like $4,000, and I was like, I don't think that I could get that raised, and I would just be embarrassed to advertise or to try to get it funded and then it fail, and then I'm stuck here with, you know, a bunch of drawings that I spend a bunch of time on that nobody wants. And I guess maybe I am underselling the idea. Perhaps it would get funded, but I just didn't feel like it was the right time, and ended up never completing the drawings. There's one that I'm still in the middle of inking, and I think I actually have to start over on it. But that was the plan, getting getting the coloring book out and making sure that however I get it printed, I get it printed on good paper. In fact, I wanted to get it printed on, what is that paper? On the Strathmore 500 series paper. But one of the other things that I was concerned about is the price. The price to get a coloring book printed on such good paper. I suppose I could go one step down and get it printed on the 400 series Bristol paper instead of the plate paper. Or something along those lines. I don't even know how to get that produced in that way. But it would be cool. It would still be cool to get done. I mean, the other option is to just do a digital download coloring book. And what you could do is you could just print out the line art on regular cheap printing paper and then trace it. But I mean, that's kind of a lot of extra steps to add to a coloring book, and not everybody has a printer, and it just, making you trace the drawings, that I don't think that would work out real well, which is why every time I do like a line art similar to this, I always end up just giving it away for free, because the hassle of printing it out or to trace it is painful enough that I don't think anybody would want to buy the line art anyway. I'm really, really generously using my solvent. And I do still have quite a lot of pencil grain texture, and I kind of like it, but the sky is a bit too dark as it is, so I'm going to use a lot of white. I'm going to try to smooth it out with as much white as possible, really. The Polychromos white is almost a worthless pencil. It's so translucent. But hopefully I'll be able to lighten the sky a little bit. If not, then I'm going to have to grab my luminance white instead. I'm going to pick up some of this graphite that my hand smeared. Gotta wait for that to dry a bit. I did saturate the paper quite a lot. Might be fine right here, so I'm gonna start coloring in this spot. See how much lighter I can get this area here. And I'm just going to use really small circles. Yeah, that's quite a bit lighter. So I'll do this with the white, kind of lighten the sky the best that I can, and blend out one last time. And then I can color in the mountains. And the mountains, the mountains are a great example for like the color harmony. Like I'm going to be using the same exact colors for the mountains, except I want the mountains to just appear a tiny bit darker than the sky. tiny bit darker, tiny bit more saturated. That's how you get them to appear to be just that much closer to you, to the viewer. Oh, hello Miriam. Welcome to the stream. Glad you were able to make it. I believe it's morning for you, if I'm not mistaken. Right, you're in the US? Or no, are you in Ireland? I don't know. I do my best to try to keep track of where everybody's from. I do it pretty well. But I want to say you're from Ireland, so it would be like afternoon for you. Early afternoon. I think you're an hour behind me if you are. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm actually really curious if I'm right. Yeah, the sky's lightening up rather well. Rather surprisingly, actually, with this polychromos white. Yep, Ireland. I could probably list maybe 100 subscribers, recognize 100 subscribers and know where they're located at. Not just patron supporters, but probably nearly every one of my patrons. I could probably do it with like a small margin of error, but I have a lot of patrons that I don't ever see them for the live streams, and I don't ever hear from them. They just kind of like support for like a month or two or 5, and then kind of just disappear, which is fine, you know. If you're one of the patrons that doesn't really get to catch the live streams and to chat with me, then you know I still appreciate you. Sorry, my white pencil was getting a little dull there. Yeah, the sky kind of lost the pencil grain texture. It's quite a bit smoother now. And I think it will just get even smoother once I blend it out. This is kind of the downfall of the polychromos, is that they don't have, like, polychromos doesn't have any low contrast, like low saturation colors, and in order to get the sky like have the purple tone that I want it and also be light, I have to do like a bunch of layering like this, and it just inevitably smooths out. It's kind of unavoidable in the sense because of how many layers I have to add to get the look that I'm going for. Alright, let's go ahead and blend this out one final time. I'm going to use a lot less solvent now. Doesn't require as much now that the paper is so smooth. like I mentioned before, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. The blending process, you know, I've probably went over 1,000 different times and 100 different iterations. So what I'm doing here is dipping it and then just putting it on my tissue and kind of rolling it back and forth to dry it, dry my brush, get the excess solvent off the bristles. That way it doesn't pool on the paper. Because if you add too much solvent, especially at this stage where you have multiple layers and it's the paper is already rather smooth, what will end up happening is you'll start lifting the pigment off, and you don't want to do that. So the more layers that you have, the less solvent that you need. And it should, when you lay down the brush at this point, it should just show up shiny because it's wet, and then almost immediately dissolve. Sorry, not the most talkative today. I'm at a little bit of a loss for words. Usually I can ramble on for at least a good hour before I start running out of things to say, but I don't know. I haven't had much going on lately. I've kind of been going through this this stage, this artist stage, where not only am I lost for words, but I'm at a little bit of a loss for ideas, and I keep coming up with something, like some video to do, some tutorial to make, and then I just lose like the passion to do it, and I guess I keep second guessing my decisions on what to do next. And so I'll come up with an idea that I feel like is a good idea, and then once I begin the execution of it, I start second guessing myself, and I'm like, maybe this isn't what I should do, and I should think up something better than it. And then what ends up happening is I scrap the idea, and then I go back in the think tank and try to come up with another, like, what should I do? What tutorial should I make next? And I've kind of been stuck in this really, really uncreative cycle where I keep thinking of things to do, and in the moment, they seem like great ideas, and then I just kind of stop with the idea in the early stages of execution or planning. And gosh, it's been really dragging me down lately, because I can't quite commit to a single idea, because like I said in the beginning, it seems like the next best idea, and then all of a sudden I go to the planning stages and I'm like, maybe this isn't the best idea. I don't think I can do that. And to just put it into, to give you an example, so this week, what was my idea? My idea was to make a video on how, or like everything you need to start soft pastels. And the video idea was to present the tools and things that you need to easily get started with soft pastels. Just a video expressing the simplicity of starting the medium. And it seemed like a great idea, and it still kind of seems like a great idea to me, even when I say it. And I recorded the video. I set up the camera, I recorded everything, and I put my memory card in my computer. I brought all the video files into my program to start editing. And as soon as the files finished copying into my my video editing program, I was like, this I don't want this. Like, this is not what I want to make. And so I ended up just deleting the video and scrapping the idea. And I was like, what is the deal? Like, why can I not figure out what it is that I want to do, what video I want to make, what I want to make next? And it's just been so kind of draining for the past couple weeks now. Yeah. Sounds like an artist thing to do. Yeah, it does. I would love to draw my sister's dog, but don't know where to start. Could use some help with that. For sure, Barbara. If you want to send me like the reference photo that you're going to be using, or that, you know, if you haven't chosen a reference photo, I would recommend starting there. You can send it to me either an email or better over on Facebook, and I can have a look at it for you and, you know, give you some pointers on starting. It's annoying, but very natural for development, especially for artists. Yeah, it is rather annoying, that is for sure. All right, I think the sky is dry now. I'm gonna go ahead and work on the mountains, and I'm gonna do the same procedure. Start with the blue here, all the way up until the snow cap. I'm actually just going to ignore the snow cap lines entirely and kind of do a darker blue at the bottom. And then for the snow cap, I'll just add a little bit of gray on the left side, because I do have my light source established. Though the sky doesn't show it much, it will eventually show up later on in the piece. So I just want to go slightly darker than the sky on my mountains here. And let's go over to this one now. And I'm going to fade away on the left side, so I'm not going to go darker over there. I'm going to go darker right here. And fade away into this mountain. So kind of darker in the middle, right there. Kind of like that. Now I'm going to grab my purple. A brother-sister collab. Yeah, well, what would we do, and how would we do the collaboration? That would be my first question. All right, let's see. I'm going to take a little bit more blue and go on the shadow side of my mountains here. So the sun is going to be off to the right slightly. And I think I'm going to grab some gray. Where do I have my grays at? I'm just going to grab a light gray. That way the snow is not pure white. That would be, I think that would be the wrong way to go. And I'm just going to gray off the left side a little bit to make it obviously darker. Yeah, I think that works. Yeah, that should be good. I'm gonna put that gray back. What was that gray? It was 270. It's just the lightest gray that Polychromos has. And I think I might even grab a darker blue. Let's see here. I'm gonna go with 144. Nah, 120. Yeah, I'm gonna go with 120. So this is just a slightly darker blue, and it still has a bit of purple in it. Come down here and just add a little bit of it here. Down at the bottom. Right along the line of the grass. Try to get that line as sharp as I can. with the pencils themselves, and it would just make it that much easier to blend out. There. Now I'm going to take the white and just do some smoothing, more like scribbling. Alright, now when I blend out, the mountains should be a bit darker than the sky. Now they almost look like the same value, but the color should start popping when I blend out. Yeah, see that purple to blue shift down at the bottom is quite a bit darker. And I'm okay with the white showing up a bit around this edge, because that also separates it from the sky quite a bit. So all is good. And you can always adjust those colors. Now for the separation of the mountains themselves, this line here, I want to get that line there nice and sharp. Get that clear separation. There we go. Might even not have to do another layer for the mountains. The texture showing up in the mountains is actually not all that bad, since they are mountains and not sky. And I don't want to go too dark with the mountains because they are still far away. I only want them to be slightly darker than the sky itself, and they'll fade away into the distance. Take my brush and get rid of all the dust I keep making. All right, so really I am onto the grass at this point. I think I might actually add a bit more blue to the mountains. I think they have enough purple in them, so I might not need to do that. Yeah, this mountain over here doesn't look like it's dark enough. Down at the bottom especially. Tiny bit of purple. Making that separation there a little bit more obvious. I think that works. quickly blend it out. Almost too much purple now. There. That's better. I think that will work. Let's see, how long have I been streaming for? Yeah, it's been a good hour, right? I'm using, yeah, it's been an hour. For some reason, like I don't know why, but all of the stream times that I have, so I have a stream time on my OBS. It says that I've been streaming for 1 hour and 15 minutes. Over on YouTube, it says I've been streaming for 35 minutes. Which there is no way that is correct, because the clock says it is 1600 and I started maybe a minute or two before 1500, so none of them are correct. None of them are ever accurate, so I never actually know how long I've been streaming for. It's kind of frustrating sometimes, but it's not that big of a deal. I enjoy doing it. Actually, I streamed yesterday over on Twitch for, I think, upwards to 4 hours, like 4.5 hours or something like that. I was just playing chess, so don't worry, you didn't miss out on a tutorial or anything, but I do occasionally stream chess over on Twitch, and it was a lot of fun. I had like 3 people maybe at the most watching me, but it was fun. Played a couple people that joined the stream. Anyways, that's actually going to be it for today. Just doing the sky, doing the mountains. Very simple. I'm not rushing this piece. I'm taking my time with it. Next week, I'm going to do the grass. And my plan for the grass is to do a gradient of light green up here to a darker green, not too dark, down towards the bottom, and then of course I'm going to fade away kind of in that that oval type shape here that I've been doing with the sky, that kind of oval shape, borderless look. I might actually erase a couple of the rocks so that I can get that shape a little bit better, maybe not. And then in between the rocks I'm going to do a light tannish color, probably just a grayish, like a warm grayish color, like the Polychromos 270 plus maybe a tiny bit of the 178. I think maybe around that shade I'll do for kind of a dirt, and I'll fade that into the green grass. So there's going to be a few different colors kind of gradiating for the grass, and that's going to be the key for next week's tutorial, creating that gradient, and then we can finally start working on some of the details. Anyways, yes, an instructional video, teacher-student interaction. I actually had Anna and I, we were talking about her doing one of the projects from the pastel course, but she works so much, and I asked her if she wanted to do a couple stream again, and she seems interested. It's just that, you know, she doesn't ever get home until like super late, and by that point, you know, we need to eat food, and by the time we cook and eat food, it's like we definitely don't want to start streaming that late, and she's exhausted, I'm exhausted, and then of course on the weekend it's the only time we get any time together, so we kind of don't want to stream then. We're not like really in the mood, or she's not in the mood. Maybe one day, hopefully, we'll get a stream together, but it would be fun to do another couple stream. Everybody generally enjoys it. Anyways, like I said, that's going to be it for today's tutorial. Thank you guys so much for everything, your support, coming by and watching the stream, and hopefully hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week, same time. We're going to work on the grass, and I may be able to set up a live stream over on YouTube on Monday. Like I said, I wanted to do a live pastel tutorial. I think that would be kind of fun to do, or at least start one. And yeah, that's it. So everybody, you have a lovely weekend, and I will see you next time. Take care.